research shows that vocabulary is best taught directly. So there's direct instruction and indirect instruction. Direct instruction is when students learn vocabulary when teachers provide explicit instruction in specific words and word learning strategies. Indirect instruction is when students learn words through incidental and multiple encounters. Research shows that 80% of words that students know were taught, not stumbled upon. So they were taught directly. Teachers should also consider the different tiers, which I know that you've heard of before. The 3 tiers of instruction. Tier 1 are basic words like milk, junk, pizza. Tier 2 are the words that we want to focus on. They appear frequently in a wide variety of text and provide students with precise ways to refer to familiar ideas. Words such as darting, exceptional, and rummage are examples of such words. Children's literature is the most powerful source for Tier 2 instruction. Tier 3 words appear infrequently and are associated with specific topics usually emphasized as part of a thematic or content area like inlet, quadrilateral, isotope. I'm going to say it again, vocabulary is directly related to reading comprehension. The more you read, the bigger your vocabulary is. So your kids that go home reading, they love reading, they're not struggling, they're probably not struggling with vocabulary. Your struggling readers are not going home and reading for fun. It's not comfortable to them, it's not what they're going to do. That is why if we want to close the gap, you'll have really bad allergies today. It's not COVID, I promise. If we want to close the gap, we have to have very strong, very intentional vocabulary instruction in our classrooms. So what I wanted you to do right now is talk among yourselves about when you're teaching and a child comes to a word that they don't know, not how to pronounce it. If they don't know the meaning of the word, what are some strategies that we teach them to help them gain the meaning?
Read context. Read the sentence. Context clues.
Clues.
Act it out.
What?
Like when you teach it, act it out.
Like that.
Oh.
Somebody else?
Breaking down.
Yeah. Everybody
we're
say
doing that
context
next week.
clues first.
Even breaking down like the chunks. If it's a bigger word, like what does this part mean? What does this word mean?
I'm getting there. So the point of our vocabulary PD is to teach dynamic vocabulary instruction. Writing down words, which y'all are younger grades, so you don't really do this, but writing words down, writing the definition, using a sentence is not dynamic for kids. So what we're trying to do, what we're going to do is teach you strategies to help kids learn as many vocabularies as they can. Which brings me to my next point. Part of the problem with vocabulary is we can't know what words are going to be tested on. There's so many words, but that's why we want to teach as many words as we can. So
And those strategies, like y'all were saying.
right. That being said, we looked at the data. Vocabulary was the greatest need, and I have to say it's been the greatest need in every school I've been in, because, like I just said, we don't know what words to teach kids that are going to be on the test, so we want to teach as many as possible. But what was alarming is it grows every grade level. This is kindergarten. That's first grade. This is last year, mid-year.
And the
test.
yellow means, green is on grade level, yellow is 1 grade level below vocabulary, red is 2 or more grade levels below, so now you know what those colors mean.
Right. So that's second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. So every time the gap just keeps getting bigger, which is why we wanted to have a PD and address this within our school. There's an academic area of need for targeted, explicit instruction to improve student vocabulary scores. The gap grows with each grade level, which is not surprising because the students are expected to know a higher number of words with each passing year. So what can we do to meet this need? There are several research-proven best practice strategies that we can implement to increase our learning. And that was Claudia's going to talk about.
So these are the 6 that Ms. Artisan and I have decided would be giving us the most bang for our buck. If we, as a school, buy in and all explicitly and what was that great word you used? On purpose. Intentionally, good vocabulary. If we intentionally build these strategies into our routines, we should have vocabulary growth visible in our data, right? They're research proven, they're best practices. So we are going to do a spring-long vocabulary-focused PD. So we're going to meet more than just today. today we're gonna cover these three: metacognition, daily read aloud time, and encouraging word curiosity. In February, we will meet to talk about explicit vocabulary instruction. In March, we will talk about structural analysis of words, and in April, we will talk about strategies to discover word meanings. And then in May, we'll get back together and look at the data. Did we show the growth that we hoped to show? And what worked? What can we continue into next year? And what do we need to improve on still? That kind of thing. So we have some tentative dates if you want to pencil them in on your calendar, but please know that these are subject to change depending on what the school is going and looking like, because sometimes testing dates change, and so we might have to shift these around. But we will let you know via email as we get closer what the date is and what the schedule is for that day, and if y'all wanna kinda get with us and make sure that that works out, that'll be awesome. So here's our tentative thing. On the weeks that we are not doing a specific PD like this, Ms. Artisan and I want to be available to kind of push in at some point and see how's it going, tell me what's working, you know, is there any way I can help you? Ms. Artisan's actually going to model vocabulary lessons for each of y'all and then come back in and watch y'all as you do a vocabulary lesson. I will kind of be a little bit more of just a pop in, pop out, ask questions, how's this tool working, what are you know, what else can I help you with, that kind of thing. So, we're really gonna kind of try as a school to go all in and everybody, every grade level work towards a vocabulary focused targeted growth. So today, we're gonna talk about metacognition, daily reading, and word curiosity. I'm gonna start with metacognition. Ms. Artisan will pick up with daily reading out loud, and then I will finish with word curiosity. So metacognition, might seem a little out of left field, because it's like, okay, but how is that exactly vocabulary? Well, it's not solely vocabulary, it's just the thinking that's good for all learning, right? It's how the brain is functioning and being aware of that. So if the learner knows what's good for the brain, that this is how the brain's working and this is good for the brain, then they're more likely to be doing these things. So metacognition is important for us to cover kind of right at the beginning, because it helps, the research shows that it helps increase student achievement in all areas, right? Because they're learning how to take control of their own thinking and learning. So the metacognition section is several slides long. Kind of try to bear with me, and we'll get through it together. So what is metacognition? Do y'all know what I'm talking about when I say that big fancy word? It basically means you're thinking about your thinking, right? You're using your brain to think about how your brain is working. And when you know what the research shows is good for the brain, then you can kind of do those things that have been proven to be good for the brain. So we as educators might know, okay, this is good for the students, that's why I'm building it into the lesson. But they don't intuitively connect those dots. We have to kind of help them explicitly connect the dots. The reason why we're moving while we say this word is because that's gonna help your brain to learn it. The reason why we're touching our arm while we sound out this word is because it's helpful for your brain. When you touch and you move, when you push a chip for a sound, like connecting those dots for them, that's important. It's kind of a shift away from the teacher just providing the information and the student soaking it in, and more the teacher and the student working as a team to help the student figure out, what do I need to know? How do I best learn this? So instead of feeding a man a fish every day, we're teaching the man to fish. He'll eat every day because he knows how to catch his own fish, that kind of thing. I will try to email this PowerPoint out before the end of the day, so that if you ever want to go back and read, you know, instead of just hearing me talking. So I think that probably we're all like, okay, yeah, metacognition, good, important, let's do it. How do we do it, right? So I'm gonna go over some strategies on how you can actually build metacognition into your routines. So anytime we can, we should foster active participation in the learning. The research shows that if you sit passively and listen, even if you're behaving yourself, you're sitting in your chair correctly, you're looking at your teacher, you will forget 90% of what you hear, which is almost everything, right? So that's scary. That's scary. It's absolutely scary. It's no wonder there are these gaps. It's not because we're not doing the teaching, it's because it's not sticking, right? We've got to figure out a way to make the learning a little bit more active for them. Well, okay, that sounds real good and all, but we also have COVID reality and we have to stay in our seats. So how do we make that work? Whenever possible, we do get our hands on something, an experiment, we're building something, we're doing something. We move when we can, so if we're learning a new word, we're acting it out with some motion that matches the word. But a lot of the time in school, we can't, we're sitting in our chairs, right? So I've been encouraging sketch note taking. That is a research proven strategy to help the students not only listen, but retain, because their brain is more active, because they're writing and they're drawing as they're listening. Sketch notes are a combination of words and pictures. It doesn't have to be full sentences, so even the young learners, they could write the little bit that they can. And it's pictures, quick sketches. So what might sound like a daunting chore of a task to someone who doesn't really like spell well or enjoy writing, they're more eager to actually take notes if it's sketch notes, because it's like a quick little picture. Ms. Golden gave a great example. She was saying, I was doing sketch notes with my kids the other day. I was talking about what is the author's purpose in this? Is it to get them to ask questions? And so instead of writing all that, she just drew the question mark, right? But as she's thinking this out loud, she just shows that little image. Sketch notes are quick and they engage the learner. The brain is much more active than if you're just sitting listening, because you're having to think, how do I write this quickly? How do I draw this? And it's cool for them because they made it. They can use colors if they want to enhance. So that's one easy way, while they stay in their chairs, to help them own their learning. Now, you can manage that. You know, if you're walking around and Susie's drawing a robot and you're not talking about robots, then you can say, Susie, what'd you draw a robot for? And if she can explain to you how it matched up with what you're teaching, well then yeah. But if not, then that's an opportunity for you to be like, okay, I love what a great artist you are, but I really need what you're writing to match what I'm teaching about. That's where it helps your brain. It's not just making movement, it's making the movement match what we're talking about. So draw what I'm talking about, that kind of thing. So you can have those conversations if you need to. We as the teacher need to model our thinking as often as we possibly can. We need to think out loud. And even think your errors out loud, okay? So think out loud constantly, because what's invisible in here, we're seeing it, but they're not. We need to make visible the invisible thought processes that we're having. And we need to help them do the same thing. So the more we model how we're thinking and asking questions and wondering and making predictions and then checking to see if we were right or ooh, that was wrong or whatever, that's helping them go, oh, you know, I have an inside voice in my head who's doing something kind of similar too. I'm thinking about this. And then they're aware of it. And the more aware you are of your thinking, the more achievement you have. We made these little question cards because we thought that having the visual would be helpful as well. So this is something, you can each have one of these. Ms. Artisan will give you each one of these. We thought it would be a great little visual cue before you're doing a task, while you're doing a task, and after you do a task. So you can push the question mark across the page, or if you have a chart, pocket chart, you can put them on the edge and then scoot it across every time you ask a question before you attack a math problem, or before you start a science video, or before you read out loud from something. So you're modeling, you're thinking out loud, and you're pushing this little question mark, so that at the end, every time you pause the video and ask a question, or pause your read aloud to think out loud, you move the yellow. Every time you finish and you go, well, what did I learn? And did I like this story? And what else do I want to know? Whatever. You're moving these things so that at the end of the lesson, they're like, man, we really did a lot of thinking before we even got started, while we were doing it, and after. I wasn't just sitting here listening. I was really actively thinking while hearing that story or while watching that video or whatever. So these are a little tool for y'all. Not only for read alouds, but certainly for read alouds. And I do have a fiction and a nonfiction read aloud page that you can kind of keep next to wherever you read aloud from. And they have questions for nonfiction or informational text and for fiction. You don't have to ask every question every time, because that would be way too time consuming. So I have 19 questions on here. That would be like unrealistic to expect that every time. Just pick a couple just so that you are aware and showing them that we're thinking every time. And it doesn't have to be these questions. It's just these are helpful for you if you're like, okay, you got to do this. Well, there's your resource. So this is something that you're going to get to keep today. And also another great tool for thinking out loud are KWL charts. Research shows that KWL charts kind of do the same thing. They cue the learner into the thinking that's going, well, what do I already know? I'm thinking about what's already in my brain. What do I want to learn? So this is what I need to be paying attention for. And what did I learn, right? So you're going to be modeling how to fill in these charts, but what does the research show about if the learner's just sitting there and watching you? How much is gonna stick? 10%, right? So, yes, it is so important for you to be modeling it, but it's also important for them to be actively participating. So maybe they're taking the student version of a KWL chart while you're doing the modeling, okay? These are 2 to a page. I know that we have limited copies, and so it's unrealistic to think that you're gonna print this every time. But probably after you do 2, they're understanding the concept enough to just on their notebook page write a KWL, draw the lines, and then there's their KWL chart.
Trifold.
Sorry?
I just said trifold.
Yeah.
Trifold, yeah, fold your page. There you
With
go.
the comprehension toolkit, they, that we do sticky notes a lot, and then, so they're writing on the sticky notes or drawing, doing sketch notes, but then they put their sticky note on the chart while we discuss it, so it's kinda like they're,
Yeah.
don't have to have a chart for every kid, they're still writing down their thoughts.
Love it.
And they can come up as many times,
And that's a great visual, because you're seeing how many Post-its went about this
Yeah.
topic. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's cool. Margaret mentioned that, she said, Windsor's doing this great thing.
Yeah. I haven't been using it as much this year because, it's
This
just,
has been an interesting thing.
yeah, it's like when I try to fit it in, I'm like, oh gosh, because there's a lot of that, but.
And that you're not the first person or grade levels pairs today to mention that this year has looked and felt a little different. But I think that's proof that we need this timely PD because
Yeah.
we had the gap when we had normal school. So we really don't need to allow a gap to continue to grow any more than it already has with this virtual. So now that we're somewhat normal.
Yeah, it feels like it's getting that
Yeah.
to normal,
This
yeah.
needs to be like
Yeah.
a targeted, explicit, on-purpose
Yeah.
thing. Okay? Thank you for sharing that. And planning and goal setting with the process in mind. The research shows that when the learner is an active agent in the learning, it matters, it sticks in their brain so much more. So I think as teachers, we are good teachers. We really think about what we're gonna teach our kids. And we plan meaningful lessons and we implement them and we check for learning. And we are good teachers in that way, right? We're not just filling time. But we probably can grow in this way where we are not just doing all of that work and presenting it for the kids. Rather, at the beginning, we are sharing with the kids, this is all that we're going to be learning. All right, I want you to figure out, what do you already know? What do you not know? How can we get you to where you know all this? Okay, how are you best gonna use your time so that you learn all this stuff? And get them to where they kind of are more aware of their effort, their attention, their focus, what they need to do to accomplish these goals. So, as a teacher, I would think, well, that's pie in the sky, right? Like, that's a little daunting to think, because that would be so time consuming. But it doesn't always have to be time consuming. It's like the talent decision-making activity. Initially it's gonna be time consuming, but as you do these things, it gets a lot quicker. And it doesn't have to be a plan for an entire unit. It can be for this math lesson. What is your plan so that you finish all 10 of these in this 30 minutes? And how are you gonna do it well? Okay, and the kid goes, okay, well, I'm going to circle the numbers in the word problem to help me pay attention to what I'm actually working with here. And I'm gonna underline what I'm doing, if I'm adding or subtracting or whatever. So they've made a plan to meet the goal of solving these problems. Simple as that. A very important part of that is monitoring your progress as you go and reflecting on it. How did you do? So at the end of the math class, build in a minute and a half where you reflect. Okay, guys, think about it. How'd you do? Did you meet your goal? I only got 8 done. Okay, pretty good. Okay, I only got 5 done. All right, we can do a little bit better tomorrow. What caused you to only get 5 done? Well, I was watching this person who was on Live Ready. It looked fun. Okay, well, maybe you can angle your chair to where you're not so distracted tomorrow, or what, help them figure out little things they can do to monitor their learning. This is a little handout that I made that may or may not be helpful for y'all for this. It's got an older, kind of more writing heavy, and then it's got an elementary one. It's got all your first grade images at the top. So they could circle the subject they're working on, they could write the topic, if it's penguins or whatever, they circle science, then write penguins. What do I need or want to learn about this topic? How will I make sure I learn it, and how did I do today? I think this little part is gonna be it could be very powerful. You don't have to copy this every day. You could laminate it, they could use dry erase markers, or they do it once or twice, and then just in their journal, they mark happy, sad, straight, whatever. It's important that we model our planning and what we want to accomplish, and then we reflect in front of them. And that when we reflect, we don't always give ourselves a happy face. Earlier, one of the comments was like, well, I think my kids will just all mark happy face. And it's like, well, why do you think that, you know? Well, we kind of all agreed that kids today, they're uncomfortable with failure, right? They want to already know how to do the thing and do it well, and they would rather not try if it means that they might not do it well. So we've got to make them a little more comfortable with the idea of failure as an opportunity to grow. And how better can we do that than by modeling our own failures, right? Like, so do a self-reflection where you mark yourself as a straight or a frown. Like, I was really distracted, guys. Mark this. Or I did my read aloud, and I wanted to think before and during and after, and I did pretty good with the before and the during, but I completely did not ask myself any question after I read it. We moved on to the next thing. I just got off track. So I'm going to mark a straight face today on my thinking about my read aloud. And tomorrow when I read aloud with y'all, I'm going to try harder to make sure at the end that I ask myself some questions. There you go. You've modeled for them that it's not always happy. And it kind of gives them permission to be like, oh, okay, she was like really honest and thought about how she could do better, and I can do that too. So that is kind of a goal. And it might look and feel a little different in your classrooms, but teaching them to think about the process of how they can get from here to here where they want to get, and how to reflect along the way is so important. Kids don't just intuitively notice, okay, this strategy is not working for me, let me try another. You have to help them recognize, okay, if this strategy is not working, what else can I do? It's okay to try another strategy. Kudos to all of y'all. I know that this great teaching is happening with math. I've been hearing it with Rosie, the multiple strategies to solve a problem. I love that. I was hearing Miss Beck the other week, virtual learning, so Rosie was in my room. I was hearing after almost every question, she would allow other kids to tell how they solved it, and it was different, and she was pointing out, oh, so you can solve this problem accurately using different strategies. Oh, wow. So it's keying them into multiple strategies. If one's not working, try a different one, you know? And that's not just for math, that could be for many different things. If you come to a word that you don't know, don't just skip it, keep going, right? If you can't figure it out from context, maybe you could ask a friend. Maybe you could look it up on a device. Maybe you could look for a part that you know what that part means, you know? So we'll go over strategies to helping with individual words later, but I think you get what I'm saying. All right. Conferences and student self-reflection. The goal is that you all would try to build each week at least one mini conference with each kid. Don't think that it has to be a 20-minute thing. This could be a 2.5-minute one-on-one moment with each kid. So it's manageable if you think of it as being like well, I can give them 120 seconds. You know, like that is manageable. So y'all are good teachers. Y'all are all the time walking around and being aware of how they're doing and where they might have an error and what they're succeeding in. So y'all, you might say like, oh, I noticed you've got your D instead of a B. Let's put it on the front. Okay, so you do your little thing. Well, that is important, and don't not do that. But in addition to that, make a time where each kid throughout the week at some point gets a little one-on-one with you where you call them over. It's really all about the heart. They feel special at that moment. They feel important that you called them and it's just you and them, right? And it's targeted time where you can give them an insight into what specifically that child can work on. An explicit thing of praise maybe, a goal for this week, something like that. So if it's the B and D, you could say, notice your handwriting's getting better. You certainly got your letters to sit on the line the right way. That's really good. I know we've been working on that. Now I want you to work on starting here and pulling around the right way, or whatever the thing is. The praise can't just be good job. It needs to be you read with expression, I heard your voice go up at the end, so something explicit that matches up what they did, and then the goal needs to be a manageable thing, and that happens in a 2-minute conference, and then you check in with them again throughout the week and conference the next week. Does that seem doable-ish? Yeah? It's one thing for me, who's an outside of classroom teacher, to be like, meet with every kid. Yeah, right. Y'all are in the trenches doing the battle work. How could it work? How could you make it work in your classroom?
Well, like Ms. Wyndham made a suggestion, she said when she was in the classroom, and I did this too, actually, at the end of the reading group, keep one child back and have a conference, and by the end of the week, you've had multiple conferences for that week with kids.
Yeah.
Because they're already there at the table, so just hold them for an extra minute. That transition time gets cut out. All those minutes matter.
In the morning when, you know, they're
Yes,
doing their morning work.
that morning.
And maybe even, probably not you, because I think you have a different duty spot, but maybe even at the afternoon when it's like, you know, the cars are moving, or the cars aren't moving, but all the kids have already gone, this kid's still here. I mean, just get creative about how you do it, but those are the moments that in years to come, the kids are like, I had this great teacher, you know, like that's what they remember, that you made them feel important and you helped them, right? You really invested in them. If y'all, as you're trying to do this, if y'all come up with a strategy that really works, let me know so I can share it, because I used to be terrible at laundry. I would do great putting it in the washing machine, moving it to the dryer, but the getting it out of the dryer and folding it and putting it away, that was the stumbling block, right? Until I figured out, still not fun, but I figured out that if I take it out a piece at a time and fold it then, it's already in the piles. I call the kid, they come get it. It happens, it gets put away instead of taking it out one time and moving it to the bed or the couch, and then it's in a lump and it gets wrinkly and you gotta redo it, right? So that strategy was like the aha moment for me, one at a time. Yay! So if you come up with the aha eureka, this is how conferencing works in my classroom, please share it so that I'm not just like this, you can make it happen. We hate you, kind of thing, right? I'm sure there are ways, but y'all help me figure them out. Using assessments for learning instead of assessments of learning, that of to a for is such a big deal. So when we were in college, we all learned the purpose of assessments is to guide your instruction, right? And then we all started teaching, we were like, the real purpose of assessments is to put a grade in the grade book, because I gotta get grades in, right? And this many by this date. And so it's kind of lost its actual purpose. Really what tests are designed to help us do is to work with the kid to go, okay, what do you know? What do you not know? That's what we need to work on together. So maybe like a pre-assessment before you start the unit to help them know, okay, I've got this, but I don't understand this, or I don't understand any of it. Or I pretty much got this. This is really just where I have a hard time. And then you could maybe even use the same assessment to show growth. You got it. Look at how much you grew. What worked for you to get there? Or yeah, we still need to work on this, and it's important because the next unit builds on it. So what can we do to figure out this? You know, like assessments for learning as a team effort with the kid. I was terrible at that in classroom. I don't know that I have like a tip for y'all to make that easy. Hopefully the virtual stuff could help because you're not using a bunch of copies, you know, like to do a pre-assessment and a post-assessment, that's eating copies. Maybe a virtual pre-assessment and a hard copy, or they're all virtual really. The assessments now, right? So, but if y'all have any ideas on that as well, does at least the concept kind of make sense with you that it should be, that ideally?
Makes sense, it's like the time, it's like, okay, we already gotta teach all these standards, like,
Yeah.
by this amount of time, can we throw in another?
Because that's a time-
Pre-assessment,
And
that's like
they
a
just
waste,
have
that's
so
waste.
many assessments as it is.
Yeah.
Like,
But
And it's
yeah,
honest, like
the
creating more
idea of it-
assessments in order to track, you know, when they're already overwhelmed with assessments.
Yeah.
But I think that's
And
where
making
the weakness in assessments come in is when they're only used at the end to just assign a grade or assign a score. It loses what the ideal goal of it was, which is to help the kid recognize what they need to learn and to get them there. So that's what the research shows. I don't know how to implement it best, but if you figure out a way.
Well, and not only implementing, but also letting the kids know, cause like I have several
pretest with my little friend crying the whole time.
So
And she got
training
Yep.
students, like,
Donna?
80.
Oh, 80.
training students to like not have that anxiety.
Yeah.
For a pretest too, like,
And it's,
so it's like, a pre-assessment is something that we could work on giving, but it's also something we're gonna have to teach our students,
Uh-huh.
that it's not a test.
Yeah, don't stress over
Yeah.
this, use this as a chance to help you, kind of thing.
Right.
Easier said than done,
yes,
but.
it takes so long for any test, first grade takes 15 times longer than you expect. And like, on the old paper pencil test, like for instance, math today, if they failed it, I would have retaught it for a couple of days and then read it. But now you don't know if it's a manipulation, a pattern, is it correct?
I know,
Yeah.
they accidentally
Yes.
said,
Like, I felt bad for it, like today, I said, you can choose your tool that you want, during the test, or they all wanted paper, I think they colored paper. Well, every single one of them that I pull back, I just happen to get the number pad. Teach you what the number pad is this week. They all went, I mean, 100s, 90s, 80s, not me guiding, just not even me teaching, just use this, and they did better, so they knew it, they didn't just miraculously know it.
right.
I don't know if it was just them manipulating it, the computer, I mean, you'd think they would have it down by now, but they
It's the
don't.
times that we're in.
Yeah.
I know, you know, we did, I had the same, similar, I think, that you're saying, because we had several that missed some of their math questions when you were in there. So we went back and had them work the problems and tell us the answer without the computer
Mhm.
on. And I just said, I'll go back and put, they gave us the right answer, like 4 different questions that they missed, they worked them right.
Yeah.
And then I just went in and just put the right answer in, and kept, you know?
Yeah.
But they knew how to do it, they knew exactly what the answer should be, and every time they put the wrong one in. They didn't know how to.
That's my biggest thing.
You know, it was different this time, cause they had to click in the box, and then click to find the number, you know, the keyboard, and then the number keyboard, and then the number. I think it was just
I
too
wonder
much
if, like,
fun.
if you did do like a good test with something, just do, you could do like paper and pencil, would it need to be the same as what this says?
I don't think it has to be the same.
I don't think it needs to be the same.
It's the thing that would be the same is the skill, right? So it's okay if it's on paper one time and then on the computer.
Well,
And I kinda
you're
feel-
just wondering if we could take it up, cause the whole thing with us not being able to give tests right now, so we.
All right, guys, and then targeted timely feedback, I'm not gonna review that because we're out of time, but it's on your page on the back anyway. So Ms. Artisan's gonna quickly talk about daily read alouds.
All right, so we all know that reading aloud is one of the most important things we can do with our kids as parents and teachers. When we read aloud, children learn vocabulary, we're introducing vocabulary, we're teaching them, we're modeling fluent reading and expressive reading, and also hopefully teaching them a love of pleasure reading for pleasure one day. So, daily reading, why is it important? From ages 2 to 7, progress in language comes through listening and talking, not through reading and writing. And this is one of my favorite slides because he's actually holding a book, reading out loud, because the computer's great and they're really cute, but it does not take the place of you holding a book and reading to your kids and modeling that. So it says, if there's a language gap, there's gonna be an achievement gap. According to research, the greatest gains in vocabulary will be the result of oral interaction and reading material with a rich vocabulary. So the book, this week was bought for us to do a book study on this year. It's called Bringing Words to Life, and it's by Isabel Beck, Margaret McCowan, and Linda Kukan. It is old, I've had it for years. So I reread it, when I was recovering from my surgery. It has a lot of really good ideas about using trade books and where to get, words, tier 2 words. It even has a list of like what books are good for what, and I'm trying to lose my train of thought. One thing I really liked for younger grades is if you've got a simple book, like I think she talked about a book where they're making cookies and they eat them at the end. There's no tier 2 vocabulary words in it because it's first grade and it's very basic. So what she did is like at the end it says, good. So she taught the kids the word scrumptious. So they really love the cookies. The cookies were scrumptious, and that was her tier 2 word that she introduced. And she picked 3 of them. Like you could do it with character traits or, whatever to help you with words. And whether they come from a language-rich home or a deprived one, we can, to a degree, control our school environment. Building time and daily for reading aloud must become a non-negotiable here. All students will benefit from this practice. So Ms. Wiggum is gonna start requiring third quarter that you write in your, read aloud every day what you're doing. If it's a chapter where you can just keep continuing it in your lesson plans, because she just wants to make, she's seen a lot of computer reading. She wants to see more of teachers holding books and having discussions with children. So, that
Well,
means.
we tried last year and we ordered a lot of the same books, but that's sometimes when you're sharing plans, that's the only thing that gets in the way. Like if I find a really good book that we all need to read, a lot of times I'll take the paper copy and just put it on the computer just so we all have it. But we did last year use our literacy money to order like a ton of the same books so that we would all have them, but we hadn't done all the same stuff, so it's like a hot
It's
mess.
been a weird year.
We will for fairy tales. You should. I'll go steal them from Betty. She took them. I said, "Those are not yours." I ordered those. They're
They're for
I don't
second
have-
grade.
I'll go get them from her.
So you did like a read aloud, like one.
Faye, she just took all
She
her
just
books.
moved.
You know what I mean? She didn't, you know, but literally it took me about 20 hours to order all those books. So I was like, oh no, 'cause it took a long time. So I was like, you're giving those books back.
Alright, so I just wanted to see like well, first of all, I wanted to share this, I just thought this was hilarious. They're on their devices, they're reading books, and she's saying, how do you get your child to read books? So again, modeling that. And I was telling them my son actually called me from college. He's out of college now, but he thanked me for monitoring his screen time when he was growing up. And I was like, and he's like, Mom, my roommate is obsessed with gaming, that's all he does. And the kid ended up having to drop out of school because he didn't go to class, he stayed up all night gaming. He was like, I really appreciate you monitoring my screen time. I was like, wow, that was good job, Mom. So, discuss what your read aloud I mean, like I always did it after lunch because it kind of settled the kids down. But you don't have to do it after lunch, you can pick whatever works for you. So what does it look like in your classroom?
Do y'all already have a set kind of when you're doing this, or is that something that you need to
So
decide
I
on?
have a question, when you say a read aloud time, are you talking, when you say read alouds in general, are you talking about the books that we're using in reading, which is what I think you're talking about, right? Like us each
Yeah,
having
you're
that book in
you're
our
reading
hand,
aloud
or
to teach comprehension.
yeah,
Yeah, that would, I mean, anytime.
or if, because a lot of
Doesn't have to
times
be a
we do
separate
use the
time.
same books,
Right.
but we don't all have copies of them, we try, and I try to like send out the picture, this is the book we're gonna use for the next 4 weeks, or next month, these are the 4 books.
But I was talking about a time
you're
that
talking
you just read for enjoyment. And it
Okay,
doesn't have to be
that's
like
what we
some-
need, is
So, yeah,
we
so
used
we
to
don't
do
have
it.
to have the same copies.
No, it could be,
Yeah.
This
you,
is
you might be
just
reading Ginny B.
enjoyment.
Jones, and she might be
Right.
reading Magic Tree
Got
House.
it.
And sometimes, like if I had a star of the day for a while, a couple of years, I would let them go pick a book from one of my baskets. And then of course, you get that kid that's gonna take 50 million years to pick a book.
Well, I think too, like I always think
Right.
it needs to be a chapter book, but then I think, gosh, I've got all these awesome books that
Beautiful
don't fit into my,
pictures.
to what we're
Right.
teaching, so
That's
really,
what
if you
that's
just
what
do,
it is.
yeah.
So we can use that time.
Try to read a book a
Definitely
day,
just-
a different picture
Yeah,
per
just a
day.
different one,
Yeah.
yeah, cause
That'd be
there's
cool.
there's a lot of good ones.
So, yeah.
Like theater time, basically.
Yeah,
So,
the
yeah.
less reading is.
Our ultimate goal is to increase our read aloud time in our classrooms.
I love it.
And include, which I'm gonna be modeling, and this book is, you're gonna love this book when you get it. We're gonna be doing a book study about it and including tier 2 words in our lessons. What?
That's happening this year?
Yes.
So when you say, that's where I was getting, so when you say include the tier 2 in our lessons, so that would be like our lessons, our reading and writing lessons.
Right.
But,
You might, so.
I mean, like, some days you may do a read aloud and not include tier 2 words.
but
Like
if
that.
we're using our read aloud, we are pulling our own tier 2.
Right.
Like she'll pull tier 2 words that she wants to introduce
Right.
from her class.
And if you
'Cause
ever
we're
need
doing
help,
some-
like Miss Lambert said she would love to, like, I'm doing this read aloud, can you help me find, or tell her what book you're doing and she'll help you find some tier 2 words, or I can, or Miss
Yeah,
William
if you
can.
wanted to say, okay, you know, we wanted to do a Patricia Polacco study, I know 3rd grade has done that. Well, we could go through the Patricia Polacco books that the library has and be like, here are some great tier 2 and tier 3 vocabulary words, or just tier 2 really.
But so like, don't plan it, like, I mean,
Yeah.
cause with me planning the reading, I feel like, you know.
No, I think that there's confusion here that is, I think I understand what the confusion is. This would be in addition to your reading
Okay, so
instruction.
Gotcha.
everybody, it would
Okay,
be
in
doing
addition
their
to
own,
reading, it's
but we can still do
Allow
vocabulary in our reading
kids.
instruction,
Yeah.
but
Absolutely.
this would be, you pick your own words out of whatever books you're
Mhm.
reading, so that way we're not gonna all, okay.
And you don't wanna turn kids off, you don't wanna have to have words every single time you read. Sometimes you just wanna read for enjoyment, so
Yeah.
you
Yes.
read aloud. And then another day you may pull your, I would do it like 1 to 2 times a week. I'm not saying doing it every single time you read a book.
Michelle was gonna teach us some new words like in the day.
Yeah.
I just wanna hear the
read
story.
book and, oh, what's gonna happen
Her
next?
saying she wants to complain.
This last one, I think that would be like, if you're reading a chapter book, you just put that until you're finished with that chapter book, and then you put.
Yeah, but what do we do?
Right,
I don't know,
okay.
Do we put it in
We don't really write-
steps,
we don't really write
Schoology,
plans.
or do we put it in
Yeah.
our smart, like, would you just put
I
a
think she
slide
wants
that
somewhere
said,
where it fits best
read
for you.
aloud, and then we could put it in our.
We could all just put it in our
slide.
own, yeah.
Yeah.
You just do one slide in the beginning that says.
Or just on your, y'all do the OneNote?
Put everything in Schoology. Our steps are in Schoology.
But if we put it in steps, then
Let's see it.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So we just need to add our own.
So word curiosity is the
Like,
third
we'll do
strategy
class.
that has been proven to increase student vocabulary knowledge.
Windsor
It is
Each day and read.
basically just getting excited over learning new words. So when you hear or see a word and you're like, ooh, I don't know what that means, but that sounds fun to say, and you figure out what that word means, and then you try to use it when you're talking, like impressive words, that would be word curiosity, and it has been proven to be infectious, and the kids want to do it, especially if you're modeling it. So if you are showing that, ooh, this sounds fun to say, what does this mean? And then you figure it out, and then you say, oh, I wonder who else can say this today, and you encourage them to do that, they'll buy into that, and they will do that too. It would be cool, we have such a great PTA, and we have great families. If you wanted to just send a remind text of like, I heard this impressive word today, or this is our word of the day, let's see if your student uses it at home, let me know. Just something to kind of encourage it at home as well, where they're listening for impressive words.
My phone would be blowing up
all night
I
long,
know.
these competitive
Oh.
moms.
My child uses 85,000
times a day.
Look at her do it, and oh my god,
Okay, so
they're not doing it. I don't think they put it on Facebook.
Miss Spencer is
Not you.
That great.
However,
It's
it's
not
that great, so I will not.
You're like,
be
don't do
doing
that.
She has permission to not let There's a video of her using
I
the
know.
word.
Oh, it's midnight. Are you still awake? I'd love to send you a video of my
Stop.
child reading.
It's a
I swear,
Facebook.
oh my life.
But if y'all wanted to like brag on somebody on the bus, because they
Yeah.
use this
I
word.
was seriously distressed. Oh my god.
So then there's also 2 books I was telling them about. One's called Donovan's Word Jar, and one's called Max's Word. But Donovan's Word Jar is a little chapter book. I used to read it to my first graders, and he collects words instead of like cards or whatever. And he puts them in a jar, and he gets really excited about it, and he shares his words. So you can do that in your classroom. And here there's a section on one thing it suggested is putting the bulletin board up, putting the word up that they're using, and then if they use it, if we use this word tally every time you hear a child use it, if we use it 10 times, we do something, like sing a song or whatever, something cheap. So,
And I
I
love-
thought that was a good idea.
I love that idea. And if there's any way that you can have the kid do the tally, or the kid put the word in the jar,
Yeah.
then it's them being more active in the learning.
I'm gonna take the jar too instead of that.
Right,
trap.
and Miss Davis had the idea of having a jar per table, and they could kind of throughout the week and then share their words or something. So that would be cool. I did empty these last night. We ate all of the applesauce. So if y'all want, if any of y'all want these, you can come get them. They're word jars, or y'all are cute and fun. Y'all can figure out your own. But that's a great idea.
We had the syllabication with phonics first because a lot of the kids don't know the word.
Yeah.
Hard word.
We have used that to do vocabulary and talk about it constantly.
Yeah, because
And they enjoy
they're
being the one who
actually
knows.
getting to sound them out, and they're like, I don't know what that, because they don't know what they
Right.
mean, and they're like, well.
Very cool.